And the topic of his presentation today is the influence of Tibetan Buddhism on the Lepchas of Zhonggu. Please go ahead.
Everyone, good afternoon to one and all. So with due permission from our respected professor, I would like to begin my presentation. So the topic which I have chosen for this conference is influence of Tibetan Buddhism on the Lepchas of Zhonggu. The Zhonggu region lies in the northern part of Sikkim. It is surrounded by river Tista, which forms the southeastern boundary, while on the northern side it is bounded by Thalung River, and on the western side there are a series of mountains including the Kanchenjunga, which is also seen as the guardian deity of the people of Sikkim. Basically, the whole of Zhonggu region was made as a reserve land for the people of Sikkim, not people of Sikkim, but people of Zhonggu, according to the notification 3069 issued by the Royal Darbar in the year 1958, whereby none other than the Lepchas of Zhonggu could enter the region, and if any outsider wished to visit Zhonggu, they were required to get permission from the higher authorities. The Lepcha people also had deep understanding of the plants and animals which were found in the region, and most of the Lepcha people regard Zhonggu region as being sacred land and compare it with having equally importance with that of the mythical land known as the Mayal Liang. There is also a common belief among the Lepchas that after they die, their soul will enter Mayal Liang, and it is quite captivating to note that the rivers along with the mountains find a mention in the folktales and legends of the Lepchas. Now moving on to the religion of the Lepchas. According to the folktales and legends of the Lepchas, they prefer to be regarded as the children of mountains. Since time immemorial, Lepchas are known to have carried on the practice of worshipping nature. The Lepchas have their own religion, Monism and Bungthingism, where Mun, which is understood as male priest, female priestess, and Bungthing, a male priest, plays a significant role. Among some of the key functions, it is they act as a mediator between Lepcha, God, men and spirits. These people also believe in the existence of two types of spirits, that is good and bad. The former brings luck, while the latter is seen as malicious and simultaneously spreading harmful aura around them. So in order to ward off the malevolent spirits, they take the assistance from the Bungthing male priest and Mun female priestess, who performs all the rituals. They possess supernatural powers, which is also used to cure patients. Along with the supernatural powers, they also use medicinal herbs to cure a sick person. So basically, from the time of birth to death, until the soul of a dead person enters the heaven, Mun and Bungthing plays a significant role in the everyday life of the Lepchas. Now moving on to the influence of the Tibetan Buddhism on the Lepchas of Zhonggu. Probably in the year 1642, the first Chogyal Phuntsok Namgyal was coronated by the three lamas of the Red Hat sect of the Tibetan Buddhism. Upon the completion of the coronation process, Sikkim was politically placed under the Tibetan influence. This meant that the Lepchas who used to live in Sikkim before the arrival of Tibetans became the subject of the then Chogyal of Sikkim. Furthermore, when Tibetan Buddhism was declared as a state religion, they had no other option but to follow suit. The reason as to why the Lepcha population did not forsake Buddhism was because of the fact that they were part of the historic Blood Brotherhood Treaty that was signed in present Kabi Longchok area between the Lepcha chief Thekong Thek and Tibetan leader Khe Bumsa, where both leaders took an oath of brotherhood and decided to live in harmony as brothers. Among the three lamas, Yaw Lasun Chempo is credited for introducing the Tibetan Buddhism in the remote corners of Sikkim like Zhonggu region. Prior to the arrival of Tibetans in Sikkim, the Lepcha people of Zhonggu used to follow only Mun religion, where all the rituals and prayers associated with nature were conducted by the Bungthing. There is no doubt that the Lepchas do consider themselves as Buddhist, but simultaneously they also perform a range of traditional beliefs and practices concerned with the nature. The interesting fact as to how these dual systems are in harmony with each other, as stated by Geoffrey Gorer, who spent some months in Zhonggu, is of the opinion that during the mid-1930s, the villagers follow these two sometimes contradictory beliefs simultaneously without any feelings of distress. He further states that there are mainly two reasons behind the coexistence of two different faiths. To begin with, some of the features of the Sikkimese Buddhism resembles with that of the pre-Buddhist Lepcha beliefs and have been included to create a unique form of Buddhism. For instance, features of Lepcha sacred landscape are incorporated into the Buddhist interpretation of the sacred geographical surrounding Mount Kanchenjunga, being both worshipped and revered as a sacred entity by the Lepchas, was transformed into a warrior and guardian deity by the religious order of the then existing Himalayan kingdom of Sikkim. The another reason lies in the way the Sikkimese kingdom was governed by the Chogyal, which perhaps can be asserted that it was never centralistic or could not exert enough influence to extend its impact into the far-flowing and distant villages and wipe off all the threats to the spiritual rule of the Chogyal. Now moving on to the next subtopic, a new wave of change. The Lepcha people of Zongu did embrace Buddhism and also made it a point to perform all the rituals associated with it, but somehow there seems to be a doubt among some people that some of the old traditions of the Lepcha religion were being affected by the former to such an extent that now they are on the verge of disappearance. For example, though the decline of Mun and Bungting is a slow process, it is one of the crucial changes that has taken place due to the influence of Buddhism. Among the Lepcha circle, Mun and Bungting plays a important role. Their main duty consists of averting undesirable sickness caused by the evil forces, offering prayers and conducting rituals. The Mun also act as a mediator between the Lepcha people and their god, or rather to be more specific, Rum. It has been pointed out that the major differences between the Mun, Bungting and Buddhist monks lies in the way how they perceive life after death. The former believes that if a person dies, his or her soul is taken to Rum Liang under the guidance of Mun and Bungting, while on the other hand, according to Buddhist view, the soul takes rebirth right after the 49 days. In the past, Mun and Bungting used to perform the death rituals according to the old Lepcha custom of burial. However, with the passage of time, a lot of change could be seen, like the traditional burial system is no longer followed. Instead, the dead bodies are cremated according to the Buddhist tradition. There seems to be a little part left for the Mun and Bungting during such occasion. The Lepcha ritual specialists say that after their death, the body should not be cremated, rather has to be buried. But by doing so, the soul returns back and takes possession in one of the family members or a clan to which he belongs. The Lepchas believe that cremation in accordance with the Buddhist custom has most probably led to the decline of Mun and Bungting in Zongu as well as other parts of Sikkim. In the distant past, Lepcha people of Zongu engage in hunting activities, particularly men folks. According to two hunters, namely Tashi Chiring and Gora, they are now no longer engaged in such activities since they both believe to have received message from the Pumrum, probably hunting god, asking them to abandon it. Gradually, the tradition of hunting in Zongu simply came to an abrupt halt, and perhaps one of the crucial agents behind is linked to the impact of Buddhist teachings, which emphasizes on the values such as non-violence. Like any other religion, the rise and proliferation of Buddhism in Zongu can be understood in the context of how its long process of contact and simultaneously incorporating some features of the Buddhist beliefs of the local practices. In the case of Zongu, it has been revealed through the research and studies that Thalung Monastery served as the oldest monastery where people from most of the villages gathered and offered prayers and paid their homage. Most of the monks of Thalung Monastery came from the village called Tingvong, which is again located in Zongu region. At that point of time, it was quite difficult task to reach the status of a high lama. However, a lama from Tingvong village named Chodar Lama is said to have become the head lama. He took the arduous journey to Tibet, where he managed to acquire a good deal of knowledge about the Tibetan Buddhism. But unfortunately, the dispute between the Bhutia Lama and Chodar Lama led to the latter to relinquish his responsibilities of Thalung Monastery. He returned back with some Buddhist texts and rare statues and built the Tingvong Monastery. Since he had a fair amount of knowledge about Buddhism, he turned out to play the role of a reformist. To begin with some of the measures he undertook in the village, nobody was allowed to slaughter animals in the surrounding areas of the monastery. Another crucial change that took place during his time was he introduced a Shedai school where Lepcha children were encouraged to join and could take formal education on Buddhism. During his lifetime, he enrolled monks where he taught to write and read Tibetan texts. In order to promote and disseminate the teachings of the Tibetan Buddhism, he appealed to all the village folks to send their second-born child to become a monk. Also, after the Lepchas embraced Buddhism, a steady change was seen among the people, especially the parents who began to turn their attention towards the preservation and continuation of Buddhist religion, gradually sent their son to become monks rather than sending them to school. In fact, the local people there witnessed and recalls the childhood days where after coming from school, it was mandatory to learn Tibetan language. Talking about the recent changes, though there are many young monks who are pursuing their higher studies in other Buddhist institutes, but it seems that there is a kind of gap between the old monks who preside over the local rituals, which involves the use of both shamanism and Buddhist practices. But however, the young generation monks does not seem to have adequate knowledge and deem fit to conduct local rituals. This perhaps can be seen and considered as the change which resulted from Tibetan Buddhism, since the young monks doesn't want to mingle Buddhism with the local shamanistic practices. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Karma. I think that was interesting because you brought in the narrative of the Lepcha community. And most of the times, the indigenous communities, the narratives of the histories of the indigenous communities are lost. So thank you for bringing that. I think there will be a lot of questions that will be raised. Ms. Tenzing, please. The next scholar, the speaker, is Ms. Nyima Bhutia. She is a doctoral research scholar at Sikkim University. And the topic of our speech today is scriptural inspiration in Buddhist iconography, from text to images. Please go ahead.
Before I begin with my presentation, I would like to confess something. So actually, by the second half of the first day yesterday, I had started to wonder why was I here. Not because the papers were lousy, but because the presentations were too good that I couldn't help but wonder how little that I know about all these things. And this led to me scrolling my phone at the dinner tables and avoiding the experts' eyes because I was scared कि कोई कुछ पकड़ के कुछ पूछ ना ले. So I was actually avoiding everything. But in this notebook that we get in every conference, we usually note down everything that we feel might help our research or that we might be interested in digging further. So until the last panel, I did not realize that I had actually jotted down 2-3 lines each from each of the presentations since yesterday. So I realized that it was not nothing. I am taking back something at least, even though I am not very expert in this field. So I'm just hoping that even though my field of research is actually not the borders or geopolitical areas, but I'm hoping that I give 1-2 lines to every one of you here to take back. And also just to clarify, my research area is folklore and narratives of folk beliefs in Tibetan Buddhist sculptures and scriptures. So yes, I'd like to begin now. Good evening, respected honorable experts and the moderator, sir. Professors, scholars, organizers, and to all present here today. My name is Tenzing Nyima Bhutia, a research scholar pursuing PhD at Sikkim University. With the permission of the experts and the moderator, sir, I would like to begin with my presentation for the paper titled Scriptural Inspirations in Buddhist Iconography, from Text to Images. So John Berger writes in Ways of Seeing that the relation between what we see and what we know is never settled. This statement resonates deeply with the experiences of many Tibetan households in Sikkim and Kalimpong, where sacred altars are adorned with sculptures, scrolls, and symbols that are a part of the daily rituals. These practices are often performed in the hope of favorable interactions with the deities. Yet many individuals lack a thorough understanding of the rituals or the deities represented on their altars, because some of them have been installed by their ancestors. So misunderstandings can arise, especially regarding bodhisattvas and their symbolic associations with specific mounts. The paper aims to critically explore how textual narratives and religious scriptures have influenced visual representations in Buddhist art by examining the sources of inspiration behind these artistic forms, drawing on research and interviews conducted in Sikkim and Kalimpong. It aims to uncover how texts have shaped not only the creation of images but also the collective identity and spiritual practices of communities in eastern Himalayas. For instance, examining symbols such as the lotus or the wheel, which predate the Buddha images, it will reveal how these elements serve as visual metaphors for deeper philosophical concepts reflecting broader implications of Buddhist art as a medium for storytelling, religious devotion, and cultural expression. This paper begins with a brief introduction to the spread of Buddhism in India, highlighting the oral traditions that played a significant role in the dissemination, emphasizing the importance of narratives in shaping Buddhist practice, also exploring the significance of symbols that predate the Buddha image, before discussing the transition to a diverse pantheon of Buddha images and Buddhist deities. Importantly, the term scriptural in the conference paper presentation that I'm presenting right now encompasses not only religious texts but also other narratives commonly utilized in these regions. The first section of the paper focuses on the specific scriptures and texts referenced in this research. The second and the third delves into the origin stories and the understanding of iconographical elements found in the sculptures and thankas of Sikkim and Kalimpong respectively. Finally, the conclusion presents research findings that underscore the importance of scriptural knowledge in understanding Buddhist iconography, highlighting its crucial role in the preservation of knowledge, culture, and religion. Buddhism encompasses an extensive collection of texts, potentially numbering in the thousands across various traditions, each highlighting its unique teachings and methods. However, this research does not aim to differentiate between the various schools and scriptures. Rather, it seeks to explore the iconographical inspirations present in these texts as they are reflected in the sculptures, thankas, and cultural markers within Buddhism. The scriptures offer valuable insights into the life, teachings, and iconography of the figures examined in this paper and for today's presentation, namely the Buddha, Guru Rinpoche, Chenresi, Tara, and Pandelamo. They also provide a broader context for understanding Buddhist philosophy and practice. Buddhism spread in India as a philosophy of living in the 5th century BCE. Initially, there were no statues or pantheon of deities, and this absence continued until around the 1st century CE. During this time, the visual representations of Buddhism primarily consisted of symbols such as the lotus dharma chakra, the stupa, Buddha's footprint, etc. The lotus symbolizes purity and enlightenment, reflecting the potential for spiritual awakening even amidst suffering. The Dharma Chakra or Wheel of Dharma represents Buddha's teachings and the path to enlightenment. In the Lotus Sutra, it is said, "Just as a great wheel turns, rolling forth in all directions, so too does the doctrine of the Buddha roll forth to benefit beings," highlighting the expansive reach of the Buddha's teachings. It was only in the early centuries of the Common Era that Buddhist art began to flourish, leading the creation of statues and a more defined pantheon of deities. This transition reflected the evolving nature of Buddhist practice and belief, integrating local cultural elements and responding to the spiritual needs of diverse communities. The first sculpture representing the Buddha, beyond symbolic forms, emerged in the Gandhara region around the 1st century CE. This indicates that approximately 500 to 600 years after the Buddha passed into parinirvana, statues began to be created based on these narratives and scriptures. This transition represents a critical development in Buddhist iconography as artists sought to embody the teachings of the Buddha in physical form. Descriptions of the Buddha's physical features can be found in various texts. The Pali canon describes him as possessing an Ushnisha and Tsuktor in Tibetan. A carnial bump symbolizing wisdom and enlightenment, often represented in sculptures. So Acharya Lakpa Bomzon from Tamangompa, Kalimpong narrates a tale that he said is one of his favorites from Ashanga's Abhidharma Samuchaya about the Tsuktor of the Buddha. So one of the Buddha's disciples, he tried to see the Ushnisha. Nobody can see the top of Buddha's head. One of Buddha's disciples tried to see it. He climbed up to the heaven of Chatur Maharajika. And looked at Buddha. His head was above where the disciple had reached. Then he climbed up to the heaven of Trayatimsha. His head was higher than that place too. Next, he went to Tapodol, higher than that too. While doing so, he reached and looked from the topmost part of the universe made up of 3 elements called Akinita. There also he saw Buddha, or Buddha's head, even higher. The reason was that while Buddha was a bodhisattva living many lifetimes ago, he always bowed his head low and prostrated in front of those he had to respect, the fruit of which in this life nobody can see his head. The Acharya added that these are the Satyayug tales of the Buddha. Nowadays we can simply see the Tsuktor on the head of a Buddha statue. However, the stories in Buddhism hold moral teachings. His begging bowl, a symbol of renunciation and humility, is frequently depicted alongside him, reflecting his life as a wandering ascetic. The Buddha believed begging for food helped foster humility and was a means to be in contact with others. In the monasteries of Sikkim and Kalimpong, various types of Buddha statues are prominently featured, with Shakyamuni Buddha, Maitreya Buddha, and Amitabha Buddha being the most common. While these Buddhas may appear similar to the untrained eye, they each possess distinct iconographic elements, accompanying figures and color schemes that differentiate them. Sakyamuni Buddha is often depicted seated in the Bhumi Sparsha Mudra, symbolizing his enlightenment. He is characterized by the Ushnisha. His robes are usually in earthy tones like gold or saffron, reflecting his renunciation of worldly possessions. In contrast, Maitreya Buddha symbolizes generosity and abundance. His attire features vibrant colors, particularly gold and red, and he is adorned with ornate jewelry that highlights his role as the future Buddha. Amitabha Buddha, frequently depicted in Dhyana Mudra, symbolizing spiritual purity and compassion, red in color, wearing the traditional patchwork robe of the monks. The most known Buddha in these regions, being the Sakyamuni Buddha, had foreshadowed the coming of Guru Rinpoche with the prophecy. This quote emphasizes the significance of Padmasambhava's arrival and sets the stage for his vital role in the spread of Buddhism in Tibet. The second most common statue found in these monasteries is that of Guru Rinpoche, also known as the second Buddha. He is believed to have originated in Odiyana, a mystical region often associated with parts of modern-day Pakistan or northern India. Guru Rinpoche played a crucial role in the transmission of Buddhism to Tibet during the 8th century. According to the legend, he walked on foot from India to Tibet to spread the teachings of Buddhism, facing various challenges along the way. He is particularly renowned for taming the local spirits that obstructed the construction of Samya Monastery, having them build the walls at night while humans walked during the day, as described in various Nyima texts, according to Khenpo Thupten Sangpola of the Sheikh Gyue Institute of Buddhist Studies. Statues of Guru Padmasambhava exhibit several distinctive attributes that reflect his spiritual significance and teachings. He is often depicted with flowing long hair and a prominent moustache, dressed in traditional monastic robes adorned with colorful sashes, conveying his status as a spiritual master. Guru Padmasambhava's miraculous birth is steeped in legend and symbolism, highlighting his extraordinary nature from the very beginning, and these can be found in several key Tibetan scriptures, including Pema Thaying, translated as the Lotus Born, the life story of Padmasambhava, which provides an extensive account of his birth. Another important text is Pema Khanto, meaning the biography of Padmasambhava, which elaborates on the events surrounding his early life. Additionally, the Nyingma school of Tibetan Buddhism by Dujom Rinpoche discusses his miraculous birth and the significance of his emanations from a lotus. The 5 principal consorts of Guru Padma Sambhava are considered emanations of Doje Phangmo. Mandarva from Zahor represents the emanation of the body. Yeshi Chogel from Tibet embodies the emanation of speech. Sakya Devi from Nepal signifies the emanation of mind. Kala Siddhi from India represents the emanation of quality. And Tashi Khedun from Bhutan, also historically known as Mon, symbolizes the emanation of activity. Among these, the 2 main consorts frequently depicted in monasteries included in field research for this work are Mandarva and Yeshi Tsogel. Mandarva, often depicted in Thangka paintings, embodies the qualities of devotion and compassion associated with the role as a principal consort of Guru Padma Sambhava. In iconography, she is typically portrayed as a beautiful figure adorned with vibrant robes and intricate jewelry, symbolizing her royal lineage and spiritual accomplishments, often depicted seated on a lotus, holding a vase or a kettle to pour or spread the nectar of teachings, and mirror with a colorful silk reflecting her connection to the teachings and role in the Vajrayana tradition. Yeshi Tsogel is often depicted in Thangka paintings as a powerful and radiant figure, embodying wisdom and enlightenment. In some representations, such as those found at the Buddhapada Institute, she appears with a wrathful demeanor, which signifies a fierce compassion and protective qualities. Both Mandarva and Yeshi Tsogel are often depicted holding significant vessels in their iconography, which also symbolize their mutual teachings and shared wisdom. Mandarva carrying a skull cup or kapala, while Yeshi Tsogel holding a kettle, could be viewed as a symbolism of the two teaching each other their shared knowledge. Apart from the consorts, in the artistic traditions of Sikkim and Kalimpong, his manifestations hold significant status in Thangka paintings and sculptures. Each manifestation embodies unique qualities that cater to the diverse needs, and for this presentation today, I will discuss only the last one, which is Dorje Trollo, a male protector often misidentified as Pandelamu by the lay people, which is a female protector, particularly when depicted in copper, gold, or other monotone colors. While both figures serve as protectors of the Dharma and share similarities such as 3 eyes, fierce, wrathful faces, and dynamic seated positions with 1 foot ready for action, key differences are discernible to the trained eyes of Khenpos, lamas, sculptors, and sometimes the traders. The differences are easier spotted in the Thangkas, where Doje Trollo is typically depicted riding a pregnant tigress, symbolizing fierce energy, strength, and new life, and is associated with a scorpion, which signifies his ability to neutralize poison and transform negative energies. In contrast, Pandelamu rides a mule, reflecting her mythological narrative. She was earlier born as Remati, married to the evil king of Lanka, vowed that if she failed to convert the king to Buddhism and dispel his wickedness, she would end his dynasty. She tried many times to convert him to avoid the killing of Dharma practitioners, but failed, along with their son being raised to kill the Buddhists. With no choice, she slaughtered her son while her husband was out hunting. She ate her son's flesh, drank his blood with his skull as a kapala, and flayed his skin to make a saddle, as you may see there in the picture. The skin is wrapped around her waist. The king, furious, shot an arrow at the mule, leaving a wound that is depicted as an eye. Furthermore, Doje Trollo is commonly portrayed in vibrant colors, holding a Vajrayana bell, while Pandelamu is typically represented with darker hues and attributes, like a skull cup, often surrounded by spirits, symbolizing her escape from the hell after killing her son and before meeting the Buddha. Understanding these nuanced details enriches our appreciation of the iconography and the profound symbolic meanings within Tibetan Buddhist art. Guru Padma Sambhava exemplifies fierce protective qualities within the Dharma, particularly through figures like Doje Trollo, while this fierce compassion is mirrored in Pandelamu, who acts as a powerful Dharmapala for the His Holiness lineage of Dalai Lamas. The Dalai Lama is viewed as an emanation of Avalokiteshvara, the embodiment of infinite compassion in Tibetan. Avalokiteshvara is often referred to as Chenresi, where the term is derived from the Chen, meaning I, Re signifying continuity, and Z or Si meaning to look. This conveys the idea of one who continually observes all beings with compassionate awareness. to elucidate the iconography, Chenresi, the manifestation of awakened compassion, is centrally positioned within this arrangement of 9 dynamic figures of light. He is portrayed in red and is adorned with the attributes associated with the Sambhogakaya realm, including a crown, jewel, and luxurious silks. His 4 arms symbolize the 4 immeasurables, which are love, compassion, joy, and equanimity. One of the most renowned depictions of Avalokiteshvara is that of the 1,000 arms. Here is one depiction of why and how. His immense compassion was so profound that it brought him to tears upon witnessing the suffering of all beings. And Tara, a prominent figure in Tibetan Buddhism, is often revered as a goddess of compassion and action. Born from the tears of Avalokiteshvara, various origin stories highlight her compassionate nature, emphasizing her role as a protector and a liberator. In one of the narratives that I heard from Khempo Sonam Gyatsola of Tsangdok Palri, Kalimpong, it is said that Avalokiteshvara wept upon witnessing the suffering of sentient beings, and from his tears, a lotus bloomed, giving rise to Tara. Tara is not only seen as a goddess who responds to the cries of those in distress, but also as an active force in guiding practitioners on the path to enlightenment. Tara's main form, green Tara, is depicted as dark green, symbolizing awakened activity. In fact, dark green is considered the result of all colors combined. In conclusion, this paper has attempted to bring forth the profound interplay between scriptural narratives and Buddhist iconography in the eastern Himalayan regions of Sikkim and Kalimpong. Through a comprehensive examination of key texts and their artistic manifestations, the paper has tried to reveal that these visual representations are not merely decorative. They serve as vital conduits for spiritual teachings, cultural identity, and community practices. The journey from text to image highlights the transformative power of narratives in shaping religious experiences. Moreover, by integrating insights from field research and interviews conducted in local monasteries, the study underscores the importance of understanding the iconographical elements. It invites consideration of how these images serve as living embodiments of teachings that continue to inspire spiritual practice and cultural continuity. Moving forward, this paper hoped that this exploration will encourage further research into the dynamic relationship between scripture and visual culture in Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism, fostering a greater appreciation for the intricate layers of meanings embedded within its artistic expressions. The monasteries that I frequented throughout this research, and these are the people, monks and the lay persons that I interviewed for the research. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Nyima. It was very nice. Now I would like to call Ms. Jahnabi Upadhyay. She is a research scholar at Gauhati University, and she will be speaking on transcultural laws at Indo-Tibetan borders, Buddhist protected deities, and votive inscriptions from Upadhyay. Please go ahead.
Good evening, good afternoon or evening. Good evening, everyone. To say a little bit about myself, I have just started my PhD, and I am really nervous right now because this is my first conference as a speaker. Well, I hope I do well. To start with, the topic I have chosen is transcultural flow at Indo-Tibetan borders, Buddhist protected deities and votive inscription from Bodh Gaya. So to start with, the relationship between India and Tibet is that of neighbors. The territorial proximity are just the beginning of an unending fluidity of culture, trade, people, and many underlying aspects, fostering cultural diversity, economic collaboration, and social ties, leading to vibrant interaction that shape identities. So as to say, it is not uncanny to observe the development of any kind in an interrelated way from an ancient time to the contemporary while talking about the India and Tibet. To this, The transcultural root of these lands are engraved in the visible historical facade of Buddhism. The spread of Buddhism to Tibet around 7th century coincide with the spread of Puranic Hinduism in the peripheral landscape of India. When I say about the peripheral land, I'll be talking about the spread of Puranic Hinduism to basically northeastern part of India, comprising the state of Assam. The spread of Puranic Hinduism, which resulted in the intermingling of historic form of worship in the hinterland, and the migrated ideologies gave rise to a new cultural milieu to the land, with continuous cult assimilation and appropriation, which in Indian context have been regarded as the process of acculturation by Vijayanath. So as to start with, to trace the interconnectivity of both the regions, the first is to trace the trade route that has already been so much said in this conference. So the modern trade route that can well be said that connects India and Tibet is the northern trade route that connects regions of Kashmir, Uttarakhand with that of Tibet, and the southern one that connects Darjeeling, Sikkim, Tawang, and further reaches to Assam. This route has been considered to be most direct and natural route that connect Tibet and the northeastern part of India. So as to say, further, according to the historians of racial migration in northeastern India, the Nagas, Jaintyas, Kukis have migrated through the area lying between Tibet and Yunnan from a very ancient time. So the route can be expected to have experienced the free flow of connectivity from very ancient time. But God only mentioned when the Chinese traveler Songzong by the 7th century took this route for traveling. He took the northern route, so as to say northern Silk route, to travel to India, and took the southern Silk route that is considered to be going from northeastern India to China, to return back to China. About this, it is quite in the 7th century that this route has been mentioned by Xuanzang, but Kautilya's Arthashastra, 4th century BC, also mentions routes like those of Uttarapatha and the Dakshinapatha. Whereas to say the internal route is said to have entered from Himalaya and connected the Uttarapatha route to central India on the one hand, and the land route via Tibet to China and Burma on other. The Uttarapatha prominently show up only in the 5th century BC, being available in the Buddhist literature, primarily the Jatakas and the Vinaya texts, as said by Nanjot Lahiri. Even though the trade routes can be found lately mentioned in the Indian sources, but the literary sources of India mention Tibet. For instance, Mahabharata mentioned terms like Kim Purusha Desha, Trivishtapa. Trivishtapa, for instance, is said, the Rigveda speak of Jayanta and Indra as the lord of Trivishtapa. So, as Trivishtapa is later on is said to later on Tibet came as a linguistic degradation of Trivishtapa to be Tibet or Tibet, as Mongolians, Thais and Arabs call this country, are apparently the corruption of the term Trivishtapa. Now talking about the Kim Purusha in the Hindu Puranic literature, Kim Purusha are said to be possessing the body of human and head of an animal. There are several myths associated with the origin of Kim Purusha and the land abode by them. A popular myth goes on to say that a king called Agnidhara, son of Maru, born in the dynasty of Priyavrata, became lord of the Jambudvipa and married Purvashita. They had 9 children, and one being Kim Purusha, Agnidhara decided to divide his kingdom into 9 parts, giving each part to each of his sons. The land Kim Purusha ruled over was known as Kim Purusha or Kim Purusha Desha. It lay to the south of Hemakuta mountain, and it is here, as Bhagavad Puran says, it is here Hanuman, the monkey legend of Indian mythology, spent rest of his life rest of his life worshipping Rama. Shanti Parva, for instance, chapter 207, verse 33, says that Yaksha women were the mother of the land. While searching for testimonies of such myths in the Tibetan legend, according to one of the legends, the first ancestor of the land was the offspring of a monkey, forest monkey, and a demonish of rock. Tibetans declared them to be the incarnation of Avalokiteshvara and protector deity Tara. If these myths are to be considered, then we can clearly state myths of both the region talk about similar incidences. Furthermore, another term that has been used for Tibet is Bhuta. Bhuta is, however, another term used for Tibet which has been prevalent in India for a long time. This also need to be stated that the peripheral areas of Indian mainland, precisely the mountain, the forest dwellers, away from the sway of the Varnashrama Dharma, has been generally identified as Bhotas, Milichas, and Kiratas in the ancient Indian sources. The nearest substitute of Bhota in Tibetan context is Bon. So, Bon is said to be a religious identity or identity in general that the Tibetans use to refer to their country before the hold of the Buddhism in Tibet. Bon is indeed a tribal religion reflecting characteristics like that of nature worship, spiritual ancestors, ritual practices, or also animism, particularly those that can be associated with the religion existing in the northeastern India or peripheral land of the mainland India, abided by Melachas and Kiratas prior to the advent of Hinduism. So the above paragraph brings us closer to the objective of this paper. The advent of Hinduism to the peripheral land of India coincide with the spread of Buddhism in Tibet. For instance, when the the advent of Hinduism to the peripheral land considered to be inhabited by Melachas or Kiratas started with the disintegration of the Gupta Empire. The post-Gupta period, by the mid-6th century, witnessed the spread of Brahmanical culture to the peripheral areas inhabited by aboriginals, otherwise referred as Melachas and Kiratas. The process of Hinduization accelerated so much so that it went on to incorporate local traditions and cultic forms, rituals to its fold. The incorporated elements became integral part of the Hindu doctrine of that region, with time finally blurring the distinctivity of both the culture and giving rise to the new culture that came up, becoming unique to the region by the time, which brings us to the concept of Hinduism inclusivism. The process of inclusivism can be seen prominently in the northeastern region of India, leading to a formation of new cultural identity of the land. The process was initiated with the creation of new literatures known as Puranas and Upapuranas, incorporating the local symbols of the land. To show the process how the incorporation was going on, Kunal Chakravarti, while talking about Bengal and the incorporation of the Durga cult into the Puranic, into the Hindu fold, he talks about the role of Puranas in making the cultural territory of Bengal. The Puranas evolved out with an interaction of the Brahmanical tradition and many local traditions. Any inadequacy in the level of assimilation by the Puranas were met by the creation of new genre of literature called the Upapuranas. Prime endeavor of this literature was also to acknowledge and uphold the loka dharma, religious duties of the local people. Second, according to Chakravarti, the places with loose hold of the Brahminical worldview, the tendency of assimilation was to isolate and transform and legitimize the one major popular pre-existing local tradition of the region and use them further as a medium to transmit the Puranic view. In case of Bengal, the goddess worship of the local people was isolated to form the cult of Durga. Having said that, the rise of Tantric Buddhism in Tibet can be well understood by a similar scenario that took place in the northeastern region of Assam. As both the lands share a close proximity through trade links and sees the parallel rise of the new cultural milieu and further identifies itself to be associated with the Tantric form of worship that became major identity of both the land. Assam, previous to the coming of the migration wave of the Brahmanas that spread its hold over the peripheral forest and mountain dwellers, after the disintegration of the Gupta Empire, migrated to the areas to be dominated by esoteric and indigenous culture. The coming of Brahminical ideology led to the creation of a new genre of literature which intended the assimilation of the local culture while consciously maintaining the hierarchy and hegemony of the Brahminical ideology. Popular local tribal identities, rituals, magics, and forms found new Vedic narratives. Myths were created to draw similarity and assimilation and affiliation to the tribal practices and figures to the popular or semi-popular figures in the Brahminical literature that were recognized in a pan-Indian level. However, this attempt of assimilation and acculturation led to the formation of a new culture that manifested in the form of Tantric Brahmanism with the worship of Shakta cult of Kamakhya. The religio-cultural changes were not an isolated happening but a well-aligned circumstances backed by geopolitical changes and the need of the ruling class as well as the rising interconnectivity and economic needs. The decentralization after the fall of the Guptas and the rise of regional power in the verge of state formation thrived for identity and depended upon the Brahminical ideologues and ideologies for legitimization of their rule, ushered the new way for the religious change. By the rise of Brahmanism and a state of unification in the peripheral region through state formation of 4th, 5th century coincided with the rise of Buddhism and the unification of the country in Tibet. By 6th century, Tibet was configured for the first time by King Songtsen Gampo, establishing Lhasa as his capital. This period witnessed a new development in Tibet, patronized by the king. Thomi Sambodha was sent to India to develop the Tibetan script, and later on, histories were ordered to be written down. During the reign of the king, Trisho Tenzin, Indian scholars from the University of Nalanda, Shanti Rakshita, and his disciple Kamala Samhita built the first monastery at Samye. According to the tradition, it was only after the arrival of the great Tantric Siddha, Padmasambhava from Oriya, the hostile malevolent spirit of non-Buddhists created hurdle in the construction of the monastery, were suppressed and construction of monastery was completed. This led to the rise of Vajrayana Buddhism in Tibet. So this instance also gave us to the concept of contestation and assimilation contestation and assimilation. As the region of Assam hold the earliest date of this migration, it is well believed that it coincide and nurture the Tantric form, and later this tradition spread beyond the region. The Tantric Shaktism in the Kamarupa have well been argued by scholars to have affiliation with the Tantric Buddhism. Because the 10th century Shakta text like Kalika Puran states 5 places to be associated with the Shakti Pitha, like the Kamarupa, Jalandhara, Purnagiri, and Udayana are identified as Shakti Pitha. The whole region where the parts of the deity Shakti fell is said to be in Assam. Similarly, the Buddhist Tantric text Sadhanamala also states 5 places that are said to be the Pithas. And these are Kamakhya, Srihatta, Purnagiri, Udyana in the Sadhanamala. Kamakhya is sometimes also referred to as Kamarupa or Kamarupa. Many scholars have tried identifying the location of the places, and these places are finally thought to be in the vicinity of Assam. To go on further, the 84 Siddha Acharyas of Tibet and the Vajrayana sect, namely Rahula, Nagarjuna, Padmabhadra, and Luipa, are said to be associated with Assam. Further, Nagarjuna's Sadhanamala contains a Siddha of Ekajata, also known as Ugratara or Mahashinatara. Goddess Ugratara is highly celebrated in Assam. She is also one among the 12 Mahavidyas accompanying the main deity Kamakhya. Her temple still stands in the city of Gauhati, attracting many believers. This further proves Nagarjuna's association.
Please wrap it, no? Please wrap it. 1 minute.
Okay. Okay, to sum up, like I couldn't make out most of my paper, but still to sum up, I was basically trying to portray that the spread of Brahmanism in the land of northeastern India coincide with the spread of Buddhism to Tibet. The thing is, having said that, the rise of Buddhism in Tibet cannot only be seen in the light of the influence from India. It would be overemphasizing to think of an influence so immense to change the harmonious existence of a culture, tradition, or political power. However, the aspect of Tibet and the migration of tantric form of Buddhism can be well understood with the lens applied by Kulke in understanding of the Hindu colonization of Southeast Asia. The unification of Tibet under the umbrella of Tantric Buddhism requires a contextual understanding. The adaptation of Tantric Buddhism was not a case of interpolation and transmission in Tibet, but a process of cultural convergence. The circumstances that the Tibetan kingdom experienced by the 6th century coincide with the 5th century state formation of the regional kingdom of Assam. The similar geopolitical and cultural background might have acted as a model for the emerging Tibetan kingdom, which led to the adaptation of tantric form that was prevalent in Assam. However, we are still left with the questions of why Buddhism made more influence in the region of Tibet, unlike in Assam. What were the channels of cultural transmission, and many more further questions that need to be answered. Thank you.
Thank you, Jahnabi. Thank you so much. I think the main thing that came up with the three very good presentation was the syncretic nature of our region and the syncretic nature of the religion, culture, and all. I mean, when Karma was talking about Lepchas, how Lepchas work, started becoming Buddhists. He was also, I think he will be talking later, and there will be questions filled in how Lepchas themselves also, Lepcha religion, and she was talking about Bon religion, transformed Buddhism also. We had the Mahayana, we had the Hinayana, Theravada, and then how it transformed into Vajrayana and all the other sects as Gelugpa, Nyima and all. I think Tenzing was very nice. I was mesmerized with all those images. You could have also looked into, I believe, the Newari aspects, because the paintings, the creators of the paintings, which culture was it? The Newari culture, the Newari people. There is a saying that the Newari artists would go to Tibet, and the Potala Palace was also to a large extent painted on all those things. Jahnabi, I thought the contestation when you talked about Kim Purushas and all, and Lord Shiva is often referred to as the Kirateswara, or the Lord of the Kiratas. And Gorkhas are basically two groups of people, that's the Khas and the Kiratas. So the Kiratas, the Limbus, the Rais and all will also claim that Kim Purusa, the Kirata title. So, I mean, looking towards the oral history will also be. Now, I think there is a lot of questions also as well.